They led Jesus to Pilate here. Jesus was led to Pilate here.
Jesus was arraigned before the governor, before Pontius Pilate, who questioned Jesus here.
Are you the king of the Jews?
And Jesus replied, "You say that I am."
We have come here again to hear the story of Jesus when he stood accused by the chief priests and elders.
He made no reply.
Pilate said to Jesus,
"Surely you hear the charges they bring against you."
But Jesus did not answer Pilate on a single count, much to the governor's surprise.
We come again. We come here as we did before.
As we did last year, the year before, and the year before that.
And inevitably, we bring our more recent memories.
of Tahrir Square in Cairo, of Tripoli in the Sudan, of Gaddafi and Mubarak,
of Tucson and Gabby Giffords, of the protesters in Madison, of the oil spill in the Gulf waters,
of the unimaginable disaster in Japan, earthquake after earthquake, a giant tsunami sweeping away whole cities, and the nuclear threat that continues.
Of the unemployed city by city, the uninsured next door, and the empty houses down the street.
We come with this day's memories, and we come again to hear of Pilate and Barabbas, of Simon and the cross, and to hear again of that day so long ago when the sky was torn asunder.
On this day, we come remembering the defeated, remembering faces in need, hands raised in protest, voices demanding change.
We come again today, here. We come bringing our lives to this place, this story.
On the occasion of a festival, the governor was accustomed to release one prisoner, whomever the crowd would designate. At the time, they were holding a notorious prisoner named Barabbas. So when the crowd gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you wish me to release for you? Barabbas or Jesus, the so-called Messiah?"
While Pilate was still presiding on the bench, his wife sent him a message. "Have nothing to do with that innocent man. I had a dream about him last night, and it's been troubling me all day long."
But the chief priests and elders had convinced the crowds to ask for Barabbas and have Jesus put to death. So when the governor said,
"Which one do you wish me to release for you?"
they all cried, "Barabbas!
Barabbas!"
Well, then what am I to do with Jesus, the so-called Messiah?
Crucify him, they all said.
Why? What crime has he committed?
But they only shouted louder, "Crucify him!"
"Crucify him," they shouted.
Crucify him.
Pilate calls for water and washes his hands in front of the crowd, declaring as he does so,
"I am innocent of this man's blood. The responsibility is yours."
At that, he released Barabbas to them.
Jesus was whipped with the cat o' nine tails.
And then Jesus was handed over to the soldiers to be crucified.
Weaving a crown of thorns, they pressed it on his head.
They thrust a reed into his right hand.
Then they began to mock him falling to their knees, saying, "All hail, King of the Jews."
They spat on him.
Finally, when they'd finished mocking him, the soldiers led him away.
They led him to a site called Golgotha. Golgotha, which means the place of the skull.
A Cyrenian named Simon was forced to carry the cross.
Simon, who was pressed into service. Simon, who was made to carry that cross.
And so at Golgotha, they nailed Jesus to the cross. Above his head, they put the charge against him in writing. This is Jesus, the King of the Jews.
Two robbers were crucified along with Jesus. One on his left and one on his right.
The soldiers divided his garments among them by rolling dice. And then they sat down and kept watch.
Some going by shouted insults, shaking their heads and saying, "So you are the one who was going to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days? Save yourself. Come down off that cross if you are God's own."
The chief priests, the religious scholars, and the elders joined in the jeering. He saved others, but he cannot save himself. So he is the King of Israel? Let us see him come down from the cross, and then we will believe in him.
He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now, if God is happy with him.
At noon, darkness fell over the whole land. Darkness until about 3 p.m.
And at that hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani."
My God, why have you forsaken me?
One standing by said, "He's calling for Elijah."
Another rushed off, got a sponge, soaked it in cheap wine, stuck it on a reed, and offered it to Jesus to drink.
Still another said, "Leave him alone. Let us see whether Elijah comes to his rescue."
And again Jesus cried out in a loud voice. And then
he gave up his spirit.
Suddenly, the curtain in front of the Holy of Holies was ripped in two from top to bottom. The earth quaked. Boulders were split. Tombs were opened.
The centurions who were standing guard over Jesus' body were terror-stricken at seeing the earthquake and all that was happening.
And one said clearly, this was God's own.
Clearly, this was God's own.